What's good, everybody? New week, new fresh start to the week. It is Sunday, London, or it is Sunday. I was about to say London session. I'm still a little bit out of it, but it is Sunday. I'm gonna give you guys a Sunday breakdown of what we could potentially expect, maybe coming tonight and for the rest of the week. So I'm predominantly just gonna be breaking down gold. We'll look at NAS. We'll look at US30 as well, just to kind of give you guys like a breakdown what we could potentially see in the markets over the next few days. Not really. I mean, I'll also break down GJ as well, although I haven't really even like traded GJ in quite some time actually. So, anyways, let's start with gold. When it comes down to gold, what we've seen so far is price ultimately just make lower lows from the last week. This was last week's low. Well, not last week's low, but the overall market structure is low. So we have this market structure low, and then we have this structure high, then we have this structure lower high as well. And then we have price make a lower low here. So market structure is still very, very bearish, right? We're starting to see price continue to go down, which is quite not that I want to say unexpected, because again, like, you have to understand and accept the randomness that you're going to see in the market. But coming from a technical standpoint, obviously this was last week's or the last 2 weeks lows where we did have support. Now, market still hasn't opened yet, so this was last week's current low, right? So price obviously making lower lows. What we have here is 1680 support. It is a major area of support. As you guys can see, this area of support has been getting rejected since March of 2021. And like, this area is so major, right, that this was around the time where I had my 170K day on gold, right? Or my 170K, I want to say my 170K flip of an FTMO account on gold, right? So that was that time. So imagine, that was quite some time ago, and price just broke under that area, right? So as you guys can already see on the daily time frame, we have the initial break, right? Let me grab an arrow. We have the initial break, right? And now we have price actually pull back and retest 1680. So this is kind of what I went over in the boot camp. For those of you guys that are in the boot camp watching this, right? We don't want to trade in this area here. This is no man's land. We want to find our major area of supports and resistance levels, supply and demand levels, and wait for price to come up into those areas to create the highest trading opportunities, right? So when it comes to me actually looking to take this position, one thing I was telling the day trading institution bootcamp students is that we want to see the pullback into 1680, where we can then establish and see if price actually rejects this area. Now that we actually have the rejection of 1680, right, what we can actually expect is for price to come down into the 1644 next area of support, which if you kind of consult with the daily, which is what you have to do now and look at previous structure, that is going to be this area right here where we have support. So that's kind of the next area I expect gold to go down to, is 1644. Looking for gold to obviously continue the trend. It does look like gold is trying to go back up to retest this area of support. But we already have the first rejection. This is resistance. It is confirmed that it is now resistance. So you can actually continue to look to sell with this overall bearish trend if price can maintain above or under this hourly zone here. If price can maintain under this hour zone, then you can look for price to easy come back down into at least these lows here. If you want to be a little bit like more conservative on your targets, right, you could look for the current low, which is like 1660, which this is kind of where we see support right here, right? So that's where we see support, 1660. And if price can break under 1660, then we can look for price to go into like 1654, right? Which from this point to this point is 200 pips. From this point to that point is going to be 250 pips. So there's definitely a good opportunity within this trade here. Now, let's go over NAS. So if you guys saw the last breakdown, what I was pretty much going over was that if price can maintain under this 12170 zone, which I was calling the entry, like around here, literally, then we can look for price to go down into the lows, which is going to be 12,000. And if price breaks that, we'll look for it to come into 11,930. And then if price breaks that, we can look for it to come into 11,700, which all targets did get hit. I mean, if you guys go back and watch the video, this was great risk to reward opportunity, right? The stops would have been here, the targets would have been here. That's literally 10 times your risk. Now, I personally did not catch this entire move. I caught up to about right here. And I did have a great trading day. I had a $50,000 trading day, which is, I mean, just awesome to say the least. You know, 50 grand is a lot of money in a day. For those of you guys that did watch my story when this trading day did happen, which was Friday. Now, when it comes to NAS and where we could possibly see NAS going, we're going to take a bigger picture look. So 11,700 is a major area of support, which, as you guys could see on the daily time frame, price just tapped into support and now actually has started to pull back, right? So we also have kind of like the daily closes being here as well. So this is kind of like the support zone that I'm currently like looking at. There's two areas, 11,800 and then 11,700. 11,700 is obviously going to be the lows of support. And 11,800 is going to be the kind of highs of support, where we actually do see like this close here and all these candlestick closes, and then the wick rejections are down more towards 11,700. I'm obviously prioritizing 11,700 because there's a more major area. Now, obviously, if price can break 11,700, we'll easily come down into this 11,300 area. And I mean, if price breaks that, then it's going to be a pretty nasty free fall back down into probably even like 10,000, which is crazy. We're going to have to wait and see. That's kind of like pushing it into the future a little bit too much. But yeah, now it looks like it's time for a pullback because price did make a low. So this market structure is actually very clean market structure. We have a high, we have a lower high, right? We have, or a lower low, my apologies, a lower high. Now we have a lower low here as well. I mean, depending on the type of person you are, you could have also said like this is a lower high point, which ultimately, yes, it is. This is also another lower high point. But like looking at our main current market structure points, these are our main structure points. So this is our previous lower low here. This is our current lower low, and this is our previous lower high point there. So the structure, I mean, is pretty clear here on NAS, and it's going to be roughly the same for like US30, right? I'm actually going to clean my chart up a bit here, right? Because these levels don't really matter all too much anymore, right? So these are the main levels I'm going to be looking at, right? So the first area I'm kind of looking for US30 to actually pull back, or NAS to actually pull back to, is two areas, right? Obviously, you know, we can look for continued shorts. Now, the question is going to be, where could price possibly pull back to for price to then continue to go short? If we look at a 4-hour time frame, price can pull back to here before continuing to go down. That is a big possibility. If we look at a daily time frame, price can pull back into this orange line, which is 12,000 flat, or possibly to 12,140 before we can look for price to go back down to the 11,700 range. Now, ultimately, it just depends on what price actually does, right? We have to wait and see what it does when it comes up to 11,900. If it rejects 11,900, then we can actually look to sell back down to 11,700. But the way the daily candlestick actually closed, I don't really see there being a big possibility for price to just kind of continue to go down, because this is a lot of weakness to the downside right now. There's obviously a lot of buying pressure in this area, which there's something that should be something to tell you later on in the future that, hey, you know, we have to be very cautious with this level, because immediately almost the entire move basically of this daily candlestick, which was the candlestick on the 16th, was almost completely retraced, which that's a very big deal when it comes to the daily candlesticks. Those are very big rejections. These are things that you need to be able to look out for. Now, ultimately, I would like to see a pullback into this 12,000 range, right? A pullback into this 12,000 range is a pretty good range because it is a psychological level, along with this being like the most rejected area over the last few days. So a retest of this area would also be great, but you can also look to short at the 11,900 range. I just really wouldn't go with like a heavy position size shorting at this 11,900 range. I would be a little bit more comfortable shorting at like at the 12,000 support, or at the 12,000 like 200 support, which is going to be here. I'd be way more comfortable shorting here and here than shorting here. Anyways, guys, hopefully you guys did enjoy the breakdown. Roughly US30 is going to be the same. We're looking for a pullback into like this maybe 3,100 range, or 3,100 range, 31,000 range, my apologies, where you could then look to short, obviously back down to this 30,500 range. This is pretty much going to be the area here. You can also have this support level marked off because US30 could come back up into this support level, but ultimately, like, sells are still pretty valid until this point. If price breaks above like this area here, which is this major resistance zone, then we could see it continue to come down because of what's happened, or continue to go up simply because of what's actually happened in the past. My dog just walked into my room. Simply just because of what happened in the past, right? So we've seen US30 reject this 30,500 range and then immediately go back up into 31,500. Then it go right back down into 30,500. So it could roughly follow this same price action history that we've seen here, where when price rejects this major support, it comes back up into this major resistance. That is also something to keep in mind. Ultimately, let's take it day by day and see what happens. I'm going to be very, very conservative this trading week in where I'm taking my trades, just simply because I don't want to put good money behind bad risk. So I would like to wait and see, kind of to see if these indices will pull back up into this major resistance area. For those of you guys that trade the S&P 500, it's going to be roughly the same thing. We could see it pull back into this area here, which honestly, like, the S&P 500 is looking like a little bit cleaner to actually trade because we already have the major resistance area being here. So it's kind of like, let's just wait for price to pull back into the major resistance area being right here, and then we can even target like this support zone down here. I mean, this is kind of a stretch, but we can even target like the previous day's lows. So let's just kind of wait and see what happens, guys. Ultimately, there's a lot of confluence in this area right here to go short here. Maybe I won't even trade NAS US30. Maybe I'll just take this S&P 500 trade just because of how clean it actually is. Anyways, guys, I know this video is a little bit long, but I will give you guys an update in the next following days on how these analysis played out. I'll talk to everybody in the next video.